Right, good evening, good afternoon, sorry, it's only 4 o'clock. And welcome everyone to this special meeting of the South Ribble Borough Cabinet on Thursday the 30th of June here at the Civic Centre in Leyland. We have one agenda item tonight that we need to consider, which is the levelling up funding bid, which we'll come on to in a second. But to start with, can I have any apologies for absence? Yeah, Councillor Mick Titherington's apologies are accepted, and with no others, so the rest of us are all here. Secondly, then, any declarations of declarations of interest from anyone on Cabinet? No? Good. Right, let's move swiftly and straight on then to the levelling up funding bid, and we have a report from the Chief Executive. Gary, do you want just to talk to the report, if you don't mind?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. So you have before you the outline of proposed bid for levelling up fund for South Ribble. District councils have been invited to make such bids, and there's strict criteria that's set out in the report that the government are looking for. It's quite broad, I think, if I'm honest, in terms of the outputs they expect. But you can see from the report that the number of categories that are included that the government expects us to bid into. It's important to note that we are a Category 3 authority, which basically means that we're, in terms of priority, we're the lowest priority. And the report points out that there have been some allocations to Category 3 authorities in the first round of bidding, so it does make sense to make a bid.
Put the microphone up a bit, please. Thank you.
Sorry, I'll speak a bit louder. That might be better. So we are a Category 3 bidder, I was saying, but there have been successful Category 3 bidders in the first round of levelling up funding. What we've tried to do with this bid is just kind of build on some of the things that the council have done previously. We have to submit a detailed business case. You don't have that business case before you because unfortunately the timing is such that we haven't got that ready yet. There's a limited amount of time to pull that stuff together. We are on with it and we will meet the deadline for submission. So the bid focuses on things that we feel that we progressed to date. The government really, by setting a 2025 deadline for completion, is basically saying you really should have things that are already in the pipeline. Yeah, either things that have planning or things that fit with your master planning process. So we've determined that, and looking at the things that the council have been doing, you'll note from the report that I did receive some suggestions from Catherine Fletcher, the MP, about what might be included in this bid, and responded to those in the report. So we focused in on things where we have been making progress. So members will be aware that essentially we have two schemes in the Penwitham area that we think fit the criteria, albeit quite loosely at this moment in time, and we're going to have to link those things together, which is part of the challenge. But they will focus on the public realm works in Penwitham. Members again will be aware that quite a lot of work has gone into this to date, with the master planning, the ongoing consultation in that particular area, and the council also signed off the Vernon Carras master plan as well previously, with the intention that we would invest in community facilities and sporting facilities in and around the Penwitham area. Just turning very quickly to the suggestions that were made by Catherine Fletcher, the MP. One was in relation to the Midge Hall train station, and again the report sets out views that actually that might be a valid project. But in terms of the timing, we don't think that's progressed enough to a point where we can support that at this stage. And some other areas that we felt might merit or warrant submission, albeit slightly smaller schemes. There is up to £20 million available here, so it's quite significant in terms of potential investment. So I'll leave it at that, Chair, at this stage. The recommendation is that yourself and the portfolio holder for the finance, because there is a match funding element to this bid, signs off the bid when we've completed it in line with the deadline.
Thanks, Gary. Right, let's start with this. So we were at the LGA conference yesterday, and levelling up, it was discussed at detail by a number of all parties and a number of senior politicians, and there's a view which I absolutely share that this just isn't good enough, this levelling up fund, and the way that councils are having to bid against each other for funds. That just isn't, it just doesn't seem right. And then as a cabinet, we're also then being asked to pitch one project within our community against another, and I don't like having to do that because they're all priorities. And it's this, this isn't levelling up. This is just the government saying it's levelling up and then getting us all to frantically bid against one another to try and secure some funding that which we should have had anyway for these schemes. So I'm uncomfortable and unhappy with the whole strategy that the government are, and the pressure that the government are putting us under, because the other problem we have, as the chief executive said, is we're then being categorised into different priorities as well. So how is that levelling up? How is it possibly levelling up for South Ribble when we're putting them the lowest category? It just doesn't seem right, and it doesn't seem fair. Just so Gary mentioned it, didn't he? So of the 105 projects that were successful in round one, 8 from category 3 were approved. It's a real challenge, but this is what we have. We've got totally unrealistic timeframes, hence why I've had to have an urgent meeting. Unless you literally have, and I'm going to use a phrase that I shouldn't use, but an oven-ready deal or an oven-ready project good to go, I just don't see how the levelling up strategy is going to work for any local authorities, because a lot of the schemes that you'll see, and I know for Chorley as well, it was a scheme was just about to be started anyway, that then was categorised into the levelling up agenda. So we've looked long and hard because, and it mentions in the report as well about additional gap funding as well, potentially bidding for the town fund in Leyland. But again, as a cabinet, we have to be fair to the borough. Leyland's getting potentially up to a £38 million investment through the town's fund if that's successful. And so we had to look wider, far farther afield, and there's numerous potential schemes in the borough. But the only two, as Gary said, that are really possibly ready to go is the delivery of the Penwitham Master Plan, which we know we've been working on as a priority for a number of months now, and also the delivery of the Vernon Carris Master Plan, which we have accepted as a cabinet historically. And so they're the proposals that we're going to bid for within this funding round. I hope I'm wrong when I say I don't hold out a huge amount of confidence that we'll be successful, but I may be wrong, and we are going to clearly ask the MP to jump on board and support these bids for Penwitham as well. In respect to Midge Hall, and I noticed that the County Council didn't deem that Midge Hall was appropriately developed enough for them, the County Council themselves, to put that forward as part of their levelling up bid, which is a shame. But again, we'll continue to work with the County Council and trying to see what opportunities there are for Midge Hall Railway Station. But as the Chief Exec said, the plan is we just have not got enough time to develop a plan that would be successful. And finally, there's, we've mentioned in the report as well, there's some additional real priority schemes that we're also looking at in Moss Side, in Leyland, in Lostock Hall, in Farrington and Bamber Bridge. But we're going to deal with those separate proposals. Will come forward to Cabinet, and different funding streams will come forward as well. Unfortunately, those schemes aren't ready at this point where we could bid into this pot. So that's my consideration. They are rushed programmes. It is category 3, but we need to be bidding every time we possibly can. And hopefully at some point the government will understand that this isn't the appropriate way to be distributing resources to our communities. Any questions? Matthew?
Just a couple of comments, really, as it's going to be under my portfolio as well. But I think the problem with levelling up is nobody knows what it means. Nobody knows what it's trying to achieve. Everybody has a different idea. And I have to say that if I was looking to spend money to level up South Ribble, if I'm really honest, these probably wouldn't be the projects I'd choose. Yet, with the criteria we're being given by the government, it's got to be, I'm not going to say it, it's got to be nearly ready to go, and it's got to be delivered by 2025. It's really difficult to find any other projects that you think we could spend this kind of money on to deliver. So, I mean, I'm going to obviously support the recommendations, but I think we all have to be cognizant of just how unsatisfactory it all is. With regards to us being category C, again, that is disappointing, and it is unlikely that we'll be successful, but you don't win a raffle if you don't buy a ticket, do you? So we might as well be in there and hope for the best. The fact, as you said, the fact that we're having to have an emergency meeting to get a bid for £20 million through in time, faced with really a false timeline, really, because if I wanted to spend this amount of money in South Ribble, I'd like to think long and hard about it and not just present the government with a couple of projects that we already had, that we already wanted to deliver. All that being said, if we haven't bought a ticket, we're not going to win. They are good projects in of themselves because we've already said we'd support them. So let's throw our hat in the ring and see where it gets us.
Thanks, Matthew. I like that levelling up lottery. That's what we'll call it from now on, because that's exactly what it is. Councillor Flannery.
Thanks, Chair. I get really frustrated by this type of thing. How can we take it seriously and forget about what it's called or how they call it or what it's supposed to be, what the objective is? You're getting several weeks to put something in. So I think we've demonstrated right across the board of fairness. We've invested in all the communities, not just with our wards, across all the wards. Even if some of our colleagues from in the Tories who wanted projects in their area, you can't do it in the timescale. So there's not even a debate to be had. There's not even a sensible conversation to be had. So what you end up doing is retrospectively playing the game, see what you've already done in part. And as you can see, because I've seen some of this work on the master plan, and then put it in and then hope for the best. It's not a way to govern. It's not a way to allocate funding. It's not a way to regenerate communities. So I'm with colleagues here. We're going to have to put it in, but these are not the rules of engagement I would like to see from a sensible, intelligent administration, which is coming from obviously the government. So unfortunately, we're all we're going to pitch in, but the way they're asking us to pitch in and the strategy is just misplaced. But Gary, what I would like to say is Penwortham is not just a high street, as you know. And there is public groundworks in Charnock, Middleford and Kingswell. So could we add that in too, please? We're going to do it. Thank you. Cheers.
Isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, it's part of the plan, Jay, anyway, the master plan. So, right. So we are where we are. As I say, at the LGA yesterday, there was widespread frustration from all political parties, from all areas of the country at the way this has been administered, but we are where we are. Any questions from any members not on Cabinet? Councillor Mary Green.
Thank you, Chair. I'd just like to say a few words, actually, and I think you'd class me as remiss if I didn't. But as one of the local councillors in one of the areas that potentially was going to be affected by it, I'd just like to say I've seen the Midgewell railway station reopening as a crucial proposal for the local infrastructure. Anyone who knows that area knows the train stops anyway to pass over a mandatory key to the station master. If the platform was improved, passengers to Ormskirk or Preston could use the train. It's quite simple, it's not a big project. This will give access to Preston and Ormskirk and on to Liverpool, without the need to drive or pay large car parking charges. The benefits to South Ribble are enormous. The ability to get to the UCLan and Edge Hill universities for students locally in South Ribble would be an asset, as would the opening up of a commuter belt between these two towns and cities. This infrastructure improvement has been needed for many years for South Ribble residents, and especially those from that part of Leyland and Western parishes. This need, of course, will now be exacerbated by the new community being created on the test track. Over 900 houses produce over 2,000 people and cars who will need to travel across the borough in all directions. Chair, I'm actually addressing you and the Chief Exec.
If you don't mind, I'm seeking some advice, and as chair, I will seek advice from anyone I wish to continue.
Right. So, as I was saying, over 900 houses produce over 2,000 people and cars who will need to travel across the borough in all directions to get to their place of work, etc. Also, if the appeal for the third prison is successful, there'll be another increase in the volume of traffic, with staff and visitors using the already congested roads in the area. Across the borough, the roads will be gridlocked, with also the problem of pollution, and this fact has been known for many years. So I cannot understand why it states in the report that time constraints have been the reason for this bid to be removed from Cabinet's considerations, as is also the gap funding for the widening of the A582 part of the town deal. In paragraph 13 of the report, it states that this council aspires to provide a cleaner, greener borough. So therefore, why are you potentially going to cause greater traffic and pollution by not applying this bid? By not doing this application, you have denied our South Ribble residents the right to live in a greener borough. And how can you so justify this decision to our present and future residents? And that's all I want to say, Chair, but I'd like you to still give it future consideration if possible.
Thank you, Councillor Mrs. Gray. I am surprised that I genuinely don't think you understand the process, what we're discussing here. Firstly, in Midge Hall Station, as you know, because your son is sat next to you, who is a county councillor, who is actually responsible for transport, not South Ribble Borough Council. So the county council are the transport authority with the responsibility for developing that site as and when they see it as being appropriate. Now, unfortunately, your son, Councillor Green, and cabinet member didn't see it appropriate that Midge Hall should be put forward in the county council's levelling up bid. So you can maybe ask, maybe Councillor Michael Green could tell us why he hasn't done that. I don't know why he hasn't done that, but also neither yourself nor Councillor Michael Green have submitted anything to this cabinet asking us to consider in detail Midge Hall Station as part of the levelling up bid. We've had nothing from you, Councillor Green, nothing at all. We had an email from the MP asking us to look at it. So the officers looked at it, but we haven't got enough detail to submit a bid. We haven't got enough detail. But as I said, it's the county council as the transport authority who are responsible for the station.
Please, Chair, can I just come back and say, I'm quite aware that the county council is in charge of highways. I'm sure Councillor Green will be able to answer his own queries, doesn't need me to answer them for him. But I'm just stating the case as a local borough councillor, which I would be remiss if I didn't do, as I care for my local residents of Moss Side and Midge Hall, basically. Thank you.
Thanks, Councillor Green. As I say, maybe pecking the ear of Councillor Michael Green would have been more helpful because he's on the county council and they could have submitted the bid. However, as I said, this is the first time you've spoken to Cabinet or addressed Cabinet about anything to do with Midge Hall Station. And we've not turned it down. That's totally incorrect to say we've turned down the redevelopment of Midge Hall Station. We've had to select other projects that are more advanced for this round of the levelling up bid. And when and if we get further rounds for the levelling up fund and bids, and these designs for other schemes within the borough are more advanced, then they will most certainly go forward. As for the 582 widening as part of the city deal, again, that is completely separate deal. And actually, if you speak to your son, Councillor Michael Green, he will inform you that the county council have already put in a bid and are changing the designs on the 582 widening and are seeking separate government funding for the 582. Again, so that they're not relevant points that you're making, unfortunately. Councillor Michael Green.
Thanks, Chairman. I didn't know I was here to talk about the County Council, but just for your information, we do not put railway stations in. We're not the Railway Authority. We may be the Highways Authority. And in terms of levelling up funding, if you've not looked into the rules for this, upper tier authorities are only allowed to place one bid. And the County Council has submitted one bid, and they've submitted a bid to support schemes in the east of the county. The reason being is because they see that as having the biggest impact in terms of levelling up. The clue is in the title, Mr. Chairman. And that's why South Hibble, unfortunately, is on a lower tier because we don't have to level up as much as some.
Can I have your question, please,
some communities. Yes, I will, but I'm just answering your question.
I don't need any clarification.
I'll move on if I may. The Levelling Up Fund is a 4.8 billion fund from our government, which is designed to invest in infrastructure that improves everyday life. To use Councillor Tomlinson's analogy, I'm pleased to say at long last that we're buying a ticket for the raffle, because I know previously you've not wanted to take part in this whatsoever. And whilst you talk about time restraints, this hasn't just happened. You've not just been invited to submit a bid last week. This has been going on for 2 years. There's been one round of bids already that you've not submitted.
Can I have your question, please? And I'll just also...
I'm dealing with the points in the report,
It's the meeting of the Cabinet, Councillor Green. Please, this is a meeting of the Cabinet, not a meeting of you. So can I have your question, please? If you haven't got a question, then I'm going to bring it back into Cabinet and we're going to deal with it.
Thank you, Chairman. OK, a significant way to improve everyday life would be to open a new railway station at Midjoel, serving the new community of 950 houses, residents of Mosside, Western Leyland and our rural villages to the west. Many of these residents are economically disadvantaged. I therefore support the proposal which has been set out by Councillor Mary Green and has been proposed by the MP for South Hibble, and struggle to see any genuine reason for this not being included in the report before us today. I'll summarise some of the points about Midjoel. I'm not going to say all of them because Councillor Mary Green has already made a good job of covering most of the points. But it's been included in several plans over the years in recognition of the need to meet and enhance demand as part of the sustainable transport offer for the central Lancashire area, and serving as a transport node to support future development given the housing pressures in the South Hibble area that we're all aware of. With the new housing in place, experts from expert reports, independent reports, have forecast that the station could generate 70 to 80,000 journeys per annum and receiving an additional revenue of 300,000. There are other significant housing developments in the local area that could generate additional patronage, particularly if it acted as a parkway station, Mr. Chairman. New railway station would make the surrounding area and developments more attractive, helping to grow the local economy, which is a key part of the Levelling Up Fund. And the new station will play an important role in reducing congestion in the area and commuting into Preston. Air quality is an issue of concern for our residents and for all councillors at this council. And if you travel by car from the west of Leyland to Leyland Railway Station or the nearest motorway junction, junction 28, from the travel to Liverpool or other destinations, you are travelling through an air quality management area. This could be avoided if the station was opened. Having a station at Midjoel with a direct link to Preston and Liverpool via Ormskirk will bring significant benefits to current and future residents. The important links to Edge Hill University and UCLan, as Councillor Mary Green set out, enhancing life chances and giving a great access to a wide range of jobs, including higher value jobs for the residents of South Hibble, would also provide a labour supply to Preston and other towns and cities across the northwest of England and allow our residents to play their part in making the Northern Powerhouse a reality. I do think you did mention, Mr. Chairman, the A582, and I do think the bid should be seeking some funding to carry out some further works to complete the dualling of the A582 and 5253, the South Hibble Western Distributor. This would bring positive impacts upon our roads and travel around the borough, namely improved journey times and reduced congestion, easier access to Kewarden, and significantly improved access to new housing developments. This will better connect South Ribble, ease congestion and reduce journey times. Whilst there are some potential benefits to the residents of Penwortham from the proposals which are contained in the report, I would remind the Cabinet respectfully of the purpose of the Levelling Up Fund. It is to provide funding for projects which local authorities will be unable to fund themselves in any way, which can make a transformational impact across the community, and not projects which could be financed in alternative ways. I would urge the Cabinet to show the ambition that the residents deserve and to do the right thing for the residents of South Ribble right across the borough by including the railway station at Midgehall and the South Ribble Western Distributor into this bid for funding from our government. Thank you.
So, after that political statement from Councillor Green, I would suggest it would be really helpful if you contacted your county councillor, Councillor Green, and the Cabinet at the County Council and gave them that speech, because I agree with much of what you said. But as you said to me, the County Council didn't deem Midge Hall as a priority. They deemed there was other priorities within the county for their levelling up bid. So perhaps you should have bid this in to your colleagues at Cabinet, and you may or may not have been successful. But, you know, I disagree wholeheartedly that the schemes in Penwortham aren't worthy. Of course they're worthy. And every person that lives near Penwortham, goes through Penwortham, would accept that these developments, if approved and successful, had a huge impact, positive impact on local businesses, better place to work, better place to live. And the Vernon Carris redevelopment will have a huge impact on their health and well-being, something I thought you'd have been happy to see, Councillor Green, given your county council role. But as I say, this is what happens, isn't it? It's one community bidding against another community and then being critical of the other community's desire to move forward because their project hasn't been selected, and I'm uncomfortable with it all. Matthew?
Well, like yourself, Leader, I found myself in the very strange position of agreeing with much of what Councillor Green, Michael Green said. The opening of Midge Hall railway station would be, in inverted commas, a good thing, and there's no doubt about it. But frankly, if it was such a good thing, then maybe Network Rail and the private rail operators that work along that line ought to be getting the finger out and spending some of the profits on investing in the infrastructure rather than paying the shareholders. But, you know, there are probably half a dozen worthy schemes that we could have found to spend or to bid for, but they wouldn't have fit the criteria. The idea that the opening of Midge Hall Station is ready to go and would be completed in 2025 is so farcical that one struggles to even raise a smile. Because if anyone who's worked with Network Rail, ask Councillor Mrs Smith, who tried to work with Network Rail on Leyland railway station. It is like plaiting treacle working with Network Rail. And the idea that we'd be able to come up with a scheme for Midge Hall to have it reopened by 2025 is laughable. It's laughable. Is opening Midge Hall railway station a good idea? Yes. Is it something that we should all support and look to do? Yes. Does it fit the criteria that we are being told we have to bid under? No. So if it doesn't fit the criteria, I'm not going to support bidding for it, because that makes our unlikely bid even more unlikely. Let's bid for something that we have a chance of getting through. And at the moment, these two schemes are the things that have the best chance. Like lots of stuff, like the town deal stuff when we're working with government, is it perfect? No. On the basis of it, can we turn a chance to get that money down? No. So we have to deal with the cards that we dealt with. And as far as I can see, and having looked at anything else that we're intending to do in the borough, this is about the best chance that we have of being successful.
Thanks, Matt. Yeah, I totally agree with what you said there, Matthew. And this is the other thing I say to all councillors, you know, that if you've, you need to keep as well Cabinet abreast of your desire for schemes in your wards, and I know a lot of councillors do. But as I say, we've received nothing other than a 2-line email from the MP about Midge Hall Station as well. From the local councillors haven't been in touch with us, the ward councillors haven't been in touch with us about it. So it's disappointing that it's raised today in the way it has been, because as I say, we'd all like to see that scheme delivered. Look at Bamber Bridge. We had a bridge over the railway in Bamber Bridge, which just took 10 years to come to fruition. A bridge, a footbridge as well at that. That's how long Network Rail will take. So if council agreeing they can change the criteria to 2035, you might stand a chance, but it just isn't going to happen, is it? Right, any more questions from councillors? Kath?
Yeah, thank you, Chair. I just wondered, you mentioned Catherine Fletcher's involvement slightly, but there's also Nigel Evans, isn't it? And I just wondered, because Lostock Hall, Bamber Bridge areas are in a different CLP, whether they are falling through the net and how we can avoid that in future.
I assure you they're not falling through the net, Kath. We didn't receive any direct communications from Nigel Evans' office, but clearly I'm a councillor for Bamber Bridge. We've got councillors for Lostock Hall and Farrington, and we're looking at a number of different schemes for those areas that, again, they're not ready now for this levelling up bid, but we're looking to fund them in different ways anyway. So it's, and there's an awful lot of redevelopment required across the borough. So it is happening. Oh, sorry, any other questions from members not on cabinet? Right, let's go to the recommendations. So the recommendations being asked to consider is to approve the outline of the levelling up bid and to delegate to the leader of the council and the cabinet member for finance, property and assets, Councillor Tomlinson, to sign off the business case, and then to bring back to cabinet further details for consideration should the bid be successful. So I've proposed that. Is it seconded? Matthew, Councillor Tomlinson seconded that. All those in favour? Yep, that's unanimous. Thank you. That is the end of the meeting. So thanks everyone for your attendance, and see you all in a few weeks. Thank you.